the profile and everything. She was amazing. So can we have her poster on the screen? So with that,
1 second.
can I have her poster on the screen for the introduction?
1 second.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it okay now?
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brainciti platform. A warm welcome, and for the amazing session, How to Fail Well. You know, when you fail, then only you learn what mistakes you have done and how you can get up with the energy. It's like a spring, once you get fail and then you bounce back. So that's the amazing session that we would be having from none other than an author or entrepreneur and a motivational speaker from Sangeetha Shinde T. So Sangeetha, I welcome you on this platform, and it's full of gratitude that on one call, on one message, you were available and you were so excited to come, and your profile and everything. It was so motivational. So going through her journey, she has been a very early start with she got her prize for world peace essay when she was just 14. So that's, tells about her writing skills and the passion for peace. So she has been, her writings has been published by Reader's Digest, Savvy, Femina, and Financial Times. Her career in newspapers and magazines includes a principal correspondent with the Times of India, contribution editor with Living Well magazine, the largest English lifestyle magazine across the Middle East of Arab women. So she really sets a great example for all the females, how to live a life, how to, evolve in your own self. So she is an author for one of the great magazines called, she has written on the book of Anglo-Indian Tales. So, a book with a very niche, I would say, I can't think of that name as well. And you have written so much and it's been so much appreciated across the globe, Sangeetha. So thank you so much for writing and sharing so much of, knowledge with everyone, and for your contribution to the world, to the women, to the entrepreneur segment. So with that, I would love to welcome you on the Brainciti platform, where we are running a summit of 100 days and 100 speakers. So over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very, very much. I'm so impressed with the Brainciti initiative, honestly. I just want to make sure you can actually hear me, see me.
We can.
I'm audible. Am I clear? Because I have a tendency to speak extremely fast. I know that. So please forgive me and just shout out at me if I'm talking too quickly for somebody to understand. Yeah. So just a bit more detail about myself. The topic, when I was talking to Nidhi, she said, "What would you like to talk about?" And I don't know, for some reason, the word failure leaped into mind because while she's made me sound, this CV she read out sounds extremely glowing. If I had to list my failures, we'd be sitting here till next year. Believe me, we would, starting from the moment I was born. In country, I failed. I was born the wrong sex. I was born the wrong color. I was born the wrong gender. I was born into everything that could possibly be wrong. And I have been failing from the moment I was born. But somewhere along the way, in the last 50 years, I have learned to make peace with my failures. And I've realized that failing is something we all do. We fail at so much. We fail at, our relationships. We fail in our relationship with ourselves primarily. That's one of our biggest failures. We fail in school, either at studies or getting the right prize or being in the right circle or the right in crowd. We fail in our jobs. We fail with our bosses. We fail. This is the one unifier of all humanity, is that we fail. We fail spectacularly, we fail magnificently, we fail all the time. And yet, for some reason, I don't know if all of you have noticed this, it is the one thing we cover up the most. Our greatest reality is the one we seek to hide the most. And I've never quite understood why. And I questioned it a lot. I remember when I was at university, my parents put me into this very tiny little college because they were scared I might meet boys. So they put me into this college with a bunch of nuns. And I, for some misbegotten reason, was made president of the college. I think just because I stood out like a sore thumb, I got the votes, not because I was particularly good. Uh, and I had to give this sort of valedictorian address at the one of the years. And I got my speech wrong. I mixed up all the, I had like 20 sheets of things I had to read out, and I got the pages mixed up. And I had to walk off the stage in the middle of my speech and go and sort the pages out on the side and then come back. And my legs were shaking. I was trembling. I was sweating. I was terrified of what the principal was going to say. Bizarrely, I think of that as one of my greatest failures. The embarrassment, the humiliation. And I have carried this with me, I think, my entire life. Even now, I think about that time walking off stage, not knowing what I had to say, and the sea of 1,000 people in front of me. I was just 20 years old. It really stands out as a moment of great failure. I failed my parents tremendously. So, what this whole, before I go any further, what I'm going to tell you now is very intimate, it's very personal. We all learn by sharing stories with each other. We are nothing more than the summation of all our stories. So I'm going to share with you the story of my failures and where it actually took me. So I failed my parents. I was a rebel. I refused to do what I was told. I questioned everything, everything. There wasn't anything my parents said to me that I actually said, okay, yes. It ended with me running away from home when I was 21. I ran away. I lived in this small hill station in Tamil Nadu where everybody knew everybody and everybody gossips about everybody. And I got tired of that. And I jumped over a wall one day with 100 rupees in my pocket and I ran away to Bangalore. I got to Bangalore and I didn't know what to do. I was 21. I didn't know anybody. I had 100 rupees in my pocket. So I began living on the streets. I lived in railway stations and I lived in bus stations. Uh, and I failed at being homeless as well. I was very, very bad at being homeless. I didn't take to it the way you see in Slumdog Millionaire. People just sort of get on with it and they're their greatest and their best. I whined, I moaned, I complained, I got depressed, I got ill, I got sick, I got feverish, I got frustrated. Even though I had made these choices, I failed at taking the consequences of my actions. On the streets, I met a young man, very good looking young man, who was a complete lazy person. But for protection, and I thought this was the right thing to do, and it was the first man who'd ever showed any interest in me, I married him. 3 months later, he started beating me up. Now, I made the choice to marry him. I chose to run away from home, and I failed miserably at being a wife because you know what? I don't take kindly to being beaten up, whatever be the reason. I didn't take kindly to having my eardrum broken or my lung punctured or my fingers broken. No, I was no good at that either. So I failed there. As a wife, I was a colossal failure. As a typical Indian daughter-in-law, I was such a failure. I hadn't brought in a dowry. I wasn't, ready to produce children for the family. And yeah, so it didn't sit very well with people, these failures that they saw in me and that I saw in myself for a long time. These failures followed me. My failures followed me my whole life. 4 years ago, when I was 46 years old, I had been divorced now for 20 years. Somebody walked up to me at one of the clubs in this little hill town and said, I know who you are. You're the girl who was divorced. I said, so this is my claim to fame. So my failure at a marriage in some ways defined me. And that's when it struck me. Failures define you. They define whether you will make an impact on the world, whether you will carry on ahead, whether you will be determined. Successes don't define us. They really don't define us. Success is what comes at the end of a long, long line of failures. And nobody then talks about the failures, then people will say, oh, Michael Jordan. How many of you know Michael Jordan? Anybody? The basketball player.
Yeah, the basketball. He's a famous writer
Yeah,
also. He writes a lot of books.
extremely, extremely. But do you know Michael Jordan had 900 times was given the chance to shoot the winning goal. Do you know how many times he actually made it?
I'm a big basketball fan, so I know a little bit about him. I
So-
used to play.
Oh yeah, wow, that's really cool. I'm too short to play. I can barely get the ball over my head. So
I was a shooter.
So Michael Jordan miffed. He muffed the shot more than 700 times. 700 times. So what I'd like to do is, I don't want to just be talking at everyone. I really want participation. I would like to ask you all to openly, if you're happy to share this, what have been your failures? Professor Bhatia.
I agree with you one thing that okay, failures can be a motivating factor for you, because one thing is there, when you are accepting failures and continue with the accept the failures, it means you are determined. Yeah. And that
Absolutely.
determination can bring you back anywhere you feel like.
Correct.
That's the energy you can get it from the failures, as you said, that they followed you and you are not also left them, but you're taking a lesson that okay, this determination that to accept the failure itself, I can transform this determination towards the good other things.
Right.
And
Right.
it is also true, what you said is the successes are not going to give you that good motivation and nothing, because they're all short-lived, and failures are definitely long-lived, which gives you a lot of experience, and that can be cashed.
Yeah, absolutely right. Would anybody like to share a story of failure with me?
Hey, Sangeetha. Yeah, hi. Yeah, Deepak here. How are you?
Hi, Deepak. Hi.
Yeah, no, we haven't met, and I wasn't planning to
Sorry,
switch
one
on
more
my
thing.
video and meet
You
you.
wanted me
I was
to
really
ask you,
touched.
tell you this.
Bhatia
Sorry.
ji, can we carry on with Deepak's right now? Then we take you
Just
again.
a moment, Professor Bhatia. We'll just let Mr. Deepak finish and then we'll come back to you. Is that okay?
Hello, can you
Yes, Deepak, please carry on.
Mr. Deepak, please carry on. Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. No, I failed. But I was very good student. I got first class, second rank in the whole, this one, secondary board and other things. And my mathematics were a pet subject, and I got 97 that time. And and when I went to the first POC, I just passed about it. And that is the one paper which reached me. I said, I'm not going to take any other subject except mathematics. All my BSc and everything, 6 papers on the mathematics applied and this. And then rise to the
Wonderful.
thing. So that's a thing that I was determined that how mathematics can fail me. How mathematics can make me lose somewhere. So I said, okay, come 1-to-1. Let us see.
Thank you, Sushil. Thank you, Professor Bhatia. Thank you, Sushil, for your comments. Deepak, can we come back to you, please?
You all can raise your hands, so we'll unmute you and we'll ask you to contribute. So, Deepak, please share.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I think I lost my connection. And Sangeetha, really touching what you mentioned about your teenage childhood and marriage was truly. I want to begin, by mentioning that, and I'd like to connect those adversities. And failure and adversity, they're kind of linked. For example, I went through 2 floods, which was in 2015 in Chennai, which flooded my entire house. And something similar happened in Kerala in 2018.
Oh my God.
But the second time, it didn't hit my house, it hit everybody else. But it's surprising, but adversity, I believe, is your strength, something connected to, and in fact, I run this as a simple module within Ikigai, treating adversities as a strength. And I think I'll now, with your permission, also talk about failures, because I think failures and adversities are quite
I don't have the
linked.
monopoly on failure, I assure you. Thank goodness.
Yeah. And I think the adversities that we have gone through, Sangeeta, unknowingly, knowingly, I think these are the ones which define us. And
Absolutely.
which now when somebody tells me, I mean, till 2015, when somebody tells me, hey, my house went into floods, I'll say, oh, okay, possible. But now I know what it is, what it is when a house goes into floods. How does it lose documents, and how does one?
Yeah,
Similarly,
gosh.
if somebody tells me, hey, okay, I went through a relationship or a divorce issue, I may say, okay, I don't know it, but you know it 100 times better than me. You know it 100 times better than the room, and that's your strength. So I'm just giving an example, and I think that's something which is very powerful, because when we go through failures and adversities, we can get into our strength, and which becomes a part of ourselves, something unique, something which nobody else can get it, because they've never gone through it. It's only theory for people, like a lot of people. It's only theory, what it is to lose someone, or to etc etc. It's only kind of hearsay, but it's not an experience from within. So thank you so much, Sangeet. I think you really hit the bullseye, and I wasn't really dressed too well to come on video, but I thought, let me come and meet you, and say hello
Hey,
to you.
I'm
Thank you.
like almost in my pajamas, so I wouldn't really worry about this. This is the joy of online stuff. I don't think I'll ever
Thank
be
you,
able
thank
to
you.
go back to the real world. But going back to
Yeah,
the whole subject of failure, we if you go to any sort of bookstore, and I used to haunt bookstores. Every book is about succeeding at this and succeeding at that and doing this and doing that and getting ahead in life and getting over stuff. No one talks about being present with failure, with the one thing that is going to be present with us forever. Hi, who's that?
She's so
And
inspired by you.
oh, bless you, sweetie. Hi. Um, Failure is our best friend. We have to make it our best friend. And this is what I learned to do. And I'm telling you, I fail every day. If I had to tell all of you the track record of all the failures I've had, starting with, things that went wrong in school, things that went wrong in college, how I botched up jobs, how I made mistakes, my first magazine that I ever edited, I had the world's worst spelling mistake right on the cover. I look at it now and I still cringe. I cringe. How could I make such a mistake? The thing is, we beat ourselves up about our mistakes. And the one thing we need to learn to do, and I'm learning now to do, and this is the thing I really want to share with all of you, is that often the mistakes we beat ourselves up are not really our mistakes. My living on the streets, my getting married to the man that I did, these were not really my mistakes. These were somebody else's mistakes that I took on board as being my fault, my problem, my issues, my weaknesses, my lack of whatever it was, and I became ashamed to face the world. It's not my fault that somebody was violent. It's not my fault that a community and a family failed to understand my intellectual and social needs. We very often take the failures of other people as our own truth, and it is not the case. And learning to differentiate our failures from the failures of other people and other circumstances is the most important thing you will do to shoring up your self esteem to face what is basically a very harsh world. Coming to terms with other people's mistakes. And everybody screws up. I'm going to probably say something here that will offend somebody terribly in the course of the next half an hour, I'm sure. And somebody might say something to me. This is inevitable. This is one of life's big inevitabilities. But learning that truth, that this is not my fault, this is not my mistake. Okay, so a lot of Indians here I see, which is great. So all of us, we've seen Unilever's ads for Fair and Lovely. I grew up with this. I have dark skin. Is it my fault? No. Is it my parents' fault? No. Whose fault was it? I was bearing the cross of a colonial hangover. the cross of a prejudice in society that has been passed on from generation to generation, the fault of a corporate that was looking to get rich. But I took this as my weakness, this was me, this was my shame, this was my failure that I wasn't the right color. You know when that changed? Bizarrely, I moved to the UK and suddenly I was the exotic princess. Everybody loved my color. I went for a massage in Germany, and this German lady who was scrubbing me, she was scrubbing me and scrubbing me and scrubbing me and said, give me your color, give me your color. And I'm like, it doesn't come off. You can't have it.
You know, the wonderful thing, Sangeetha, they go for sunburn to have this complexion.
Correct. They spend a fortune.
Yeah.
You know, the first lesson in dealing with failure is differentiate your failures from somebody else's. Professor Bhatia, you spoke about, you know, failing at maths. Well, maybe you didn't fail at maths, maybe the way it was taught to you. This was maybe not on you, maybe it was on somebody else. You can't teach a fish and an elephant to climb a tree, or a fish and a bird to climb a tree, and then say, oh, the fish is wrong. This is the fish's failure. It's not, the system is wrong. A lot of our failures are driven by the systems around us that are inherently rooted in prejudice and a one-size-fits-all approach, which doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So to share more personal stuff about you, I on my failures, I failed obviously at being a daughter. I failed at being a student. I almost failed my MBA. It was a miracle I got through. I did an MBA, almost failed. I couldn't get my head around accountancy. Just don't have the brain for it. But luckily they gave me a condoned pass because I'd done really well in all my other subjects. But I carried this thing that I'm not good at accounts. I'm not good with money. I'm not, you know, I built this one thing up into such a big thing in my head. Today I'm standing here and speaking to you all. I'm talking and I'm speaking extempore. You know, I just planned this in my head. I don't have notes. But when I was 20 and I gave that speech and I was so nervous, do you know, it took me 25 years before I could talk in public again. Because that failure frightened me. And it took me 25 years of unlearning to say, I'm not going to be frightened by failure. Because the problem with failure is one thing and one thing. It's not failure that scares us. Can somebody tell me what it is about failure that actually scares us? What is it that we really don't want to deal with? Can anybody put a finger on it? Anybody? What is it
It's
about
your
failure that scares us?
it's your feeling of not to get succeed.
Correct. But why? Why do we get this feeling?
Because we are not coming up to our expectation.
You're very close. You're very close. It's not about our expectations. It is
There
about
is
somebody else.
comparison coming in between.
Correct.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, I was saying that there is comparison coming in between, whether we decide whether we are failure or not.
Sangeetha, you've gone on mute. You've gone on mute. Can you please check?
Is that better? Sorry, I don't know how that happened. So the thing that really scares us, and tell me if you agree, is what really scares us is the fear of shame. We think failure shames us. We think somehow it exposes us in some unpleasant way and people will mock us and make fun of us. Because personally, if it was left to us, if we fail and no one is looking, do you think it would bother us that much? Anybody?
I think there's nobody to say or pinpoint and all. So you don't have to listen to anyone.
Normally.
Everyone.
I would. Can I talk? Is it
Yes,
okay?
absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay, sure. So, like I would say, actually, what depressed me out actually was right now I'm 24 years old. I'm 25 now, right? Yeah, just okay. I don't mind turning on my video. I'm 25 years old right now. What actually happened was that. So what happened was that actually I started off with I was working. I'm in the medical field, And I started, and when I was in the medical field, at first, when I started to work, you know, when you're working at the first time, it's your first job and stuff like that, you're a little bit scared and you go through a lot of stuff. But the person who was working with me, she encouraged me a lot and she taught me a lot of things. And I actually learned a lot more. She gave me the confidence and everything to work and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it. But the problem after that was that after 9 months, all of a sudden, like, I mean, you know, I got into the hospital and I started working with everyone and everything was working properly. I'm a lab technician.
Wow.
And I was actually doing.
Thank you for your service, Diksha. We all appreciate it, especially in these times.
Thank you very much. No, well, actually, I appreciate you for sharing what you said. You know, what I really liked about what you said was about the dark skin, you know, because that's one question I really enjoyed. You know, I mean, I don't understand. There's so many things about the Indian culture that I question about my parents. I tell them, and at times they don't know how to answer me. Like, I mean, I tell them that, why do people question about the dark skin? Because, like, you know, I myself, I mean, yeah, I mean, I kind of have like a little bit the same skin color as yours, you know?
Good for you. You must be gorgeous.
I mean, you know,
I
like,
think I'm hot. I'm 50
I
and I'm hot. I don't care about the color of my skin.
I live not practically in the US. I live around Central America, which is like close around the Caribbean. So like the sun hits us really bad. So we actually get sunburned. So we're actually turned more darker in the sun. So then, you know, and then there's like people there, and then there's like nobody actually tells us anything about it, and they actually enjoy our skin color and stuff like that. But at the minute you get to India, they're like,
yeah,
oh,
I know.
like, you know.
I hear you, sister.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, in Tamil Nadu, there was this great saint called Tiruvalluvar who wrote the Tirukural. He's a Tamilian philosopher from many thousands of years ago. And he had this to say about skin tone and color. He said God gave us the lightest parts of our body.
Exactly my point.
And the
He's
darkest
the
parts of our body to show the world. So this is the way to look at it. And I wouldn't really worry about it. It is not a failure. The color of your skin is never a failure. Trust me. Your attitude to your own skin color and your own looks, that is a failure.
That is a failure. Exactly. That's what I keep.
Yeah?
That is what I always say, that the person who really and truly loves you will accept you in the way you are. He will look at your attitude. He will never look at how you look. He will look at the attitude. He will not look at the way you look. Right? It's never.
Thank
it's always
you
your
so
personality.
Much, Diksha, for sharing.
So, thank you. Yes.
And
so,
so, but what let me down was during my after the 9 months, my manager all of a sudden, without giving me any warnings or anything like that, she just took me off the job. She just fired me. And that really just hurt me because, like, you know, after 9 months, like, you know, you're supposed to get like an award or something, and everybody was telling me that, you know, you've been doing so good, you're good at this job, like you're getting there, like soon I've heard you're gonna get an award. And
thank you so much, Diksha.
Diksha, that segues me very nicely into the next bit of my conversation. Thank you with you all. It's a beautiful segue, and thank you very much. So how many of you besides Diksha have been let down at some point by somebody that you trusted? Pretty much everyone?
Everyone would be, right? We all face that.
Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I lent 4 lakhs to somebody because she wanted to join a beauty pageant. She was a good friend. And I trained her and I coached her. And 6 months after winning somewhat of a title, this woman stopped talking to me and didn't, of course, return the money. I felt very let down. And for 6 months, I wallowed in self-misery and self-pity because I was very close to this person. And you know what? I saw it as my failure. I thought I had done something wrong. I questioned myself and said, what did I do? What did I do? Where did I go wrong? How could, you know, what made her treat me like this? What did I do? I took it all on myself. I keep coming back to this. We take failures of other people as our own truth, and we've got to stop doing that. This is the most important thing. The first step to learning to make failure your friend, differentiate your failure from the failures of other people. Because all of you listening to this story now, none of you are going to turn around and say, hey, it was your fault. You're going to say, hey, you were really good to somebody and she behaved like a complete cow, and you shouldn't take this on yourself. But
So
personally,
with
when it
this,
happens to
Sangeetha,
you,
I have one. Okay. So I have this question, like, how to make friends when you have this phase of failures going around. How to truly look at the friendship and the friends.
So when you fail at friendships, when you fail at love, or but sorry, let me reverse the order of that. When friendship fails you and love fails you and relationships fail you, the only way, and I have found this to be very true, and I do it, the only way is to get back on that horse as fast as you possibly can. Because I read a lot. I read everything from the Bible to the Bhagavad Gita to the Quran, you name it, I will read it. If it's philosophical or religious or spiritual or stories, I will read it. And there's this beautiful parable in the story in the Bible that is told of Jesus who healed 10 people, blind people. And they were so happy. They all ran away screaming, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm happy. One came back. One came back to say thank you. Now, if that can happen to Jesus, who the hell are you and I? Yeah? For every 10 people who stab us in the back, there will be that one person who makes it worthwhile. But you have to get to you have to get through those 9 failures to get to that one success. But if you stop at the 4th or 5th failure and say, I'm not making friends ever again, or I will not love ever again, or I will not trust ever again, that's when you have failed. That's your failure. When you keep trusting, and it is inevitable, the very law of averages. Okay, you've done an MBA, Nidhi. Most of us here seem to be very highly educated. We've done statistics. Law of statistics is as simple. It'll go up, it'll go down, it'll go up again. And somewhere along the way, that one person will come along who will make all those other horrible failures seem so, so worthwhile. You'll be so glad that you failed because this one was so good. And if you hadn't failed at all the others, you would not have got to this one. Of all my lousy boyfriends, of all my lousy friends, I am so glad it didn't work out. Hindsight is 2020, but we have to wait for hindsight to reach us. And part of dealing with failure, again, to segue, is patience. Patience. We need patience with failure. Failure is a very, very slow, horrible, agonizing teacher. But my God, she is a good, good, good one. People don't become doctors in 1 year. It takes them 7 years, 9 years of learning. Why should we be experts at life or experts at failure, that most difficult of subjects to master, from one lesson? We need the lesson repeated to us over and over again in different forms until we come across every facet of it. We learn to recognize it. We learn to recognize a narcissist from a psychopath, from a faker, from a pseudo person to a poser. And then when you've learned all this, you suddenly come across somebody genuine. You go, oh, you're genuine.
You know what, like the way you said, even I was going through a struggling phase because having 2 kids, then taking a break, then coming back. And coincidentally, I called up my friend who's currently an editor with Indian Express magazine, and he has been a trainer also. So, he refreshed my skills, which I was before marriage. So they knew your instincts, they knew by birth, there are few things which are inborn in you, like writing skills, training, spirituality. So that's what you rightly said. When you are in deep shit, you will call the best of your friends, and they will enlighten you what you have, the power you have, the command you have, the skill sets you have.
Correct. Absolutely. And these people are few and far between. Huh? It is not the people you party with. It is not the people you go out and hang out with and go out on Fridays drinking with. It is not the people that you sort of went to school with even. There are these rare angels that will come your way and they
Yeah.
will be with you for life. And you have
Yeah.
to, as they say, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to get to your prince.
Mhm.
And this is true. I have found this to be true of me. I found it to be true for most other people. So learning to be patient with failure is so, so important. We are not patient, and then learning to be patient with ourselves. You know, we're going to screw up. We're going to screw up often. You think all the people who've hurt me, have I learned each time? No, no, no. I had to be, pardon the language, bitch slapped at least about 20 times before the lesson actually hit home. It happens because we're stupid. As humans, we're actually quite stupid. You know, there's this great book called Humans, A History of How We Effed It All Up. And it's a brilliant book about how we as the human race just keep getting things consistently wrong, always. You think in 5,000 years we have not learned that war is bad? What are we doing today? What is America's biggest spending on? Military. Look at India. Poverty all over the world, but we have the fourth largest standing army in the world. We're spending on war. Still, why? Why is this necessary? We are heir to this planet for a brief 80, 85 years if we're lucky. You want to spend that in war with our neighbors? We make mistakes. You are not here on this earth to get it right. You are here to get it wrong. You are here to learn what it feels like to lose, to have heartache, to have despair, to curl up in a ball on the floor and cry your heart out, to have nightmares, to be let down, to be hurt, to be wounded. Because this is the only way you will grow. There is no other way. Failure is the only way to grow. You do not, the only thing that grows from success is a big head. Nothing else grows.
Right. So we have Mr. Shantanu who would like to have.
Yeah, fantastic, Sangeeta. She explained very well.
Hi,
All the
Shantanu.
yeah. What my means, I'll read one sentence, which is also very good. That is, don't read success stories. You will get only a message. If you read success stories, you will get only a message, and read failure stories, you will get ideas to get success. So
Correct. Beautiful.
yeah, so
Beautiful.
that is a really fantastic sentence. And what I feel that instead of calling failure as a failure, you can call it as an unfinished success. So
I love
the
that.
word
I
unfinished
love
success.
that.
So unfinished success is having also a success inside that word. So
Correct.
instead of calling failure, we can call it as an unfinished success. And what I feel is a failure is a lesson to learn, and success is lesson to apply. When you learn how to apply a failure, it will give you a success. So I think you fantastically explained the point to point everything. So thank you very much for that. Thank you
Oh,
very much.
please. I'm just privileged to be here and share with you all. I mean, I think we all learn from each other. I'm not teaching any of you anything new, and getting this feedback from each and every one of you is teaching me so much. So I'm really grateful. And I really, really mean that. But yeah, you know, going back to failure. So I failed at my first marriage. I failed at my first job. I got kicked out of my first job, by the way. I literally got kicked out of my first job. Do you know why? Because I failed at being demure. I topped an examination for a very famous hotel chain in India. And after the 6 months training, I topped the training as well. And when I was given my appointment with the chain, I was given a position in the back office because I was told I didn't have the right appearance to be customer facing. You know what I did? I tore up the letter, I flung it on the table, and I walked out. I was 21. You know what? That was actually a failure on my part. It took a long time for me to, I wandered around thinking, oh, look at me, I'm so brave, I'm so bold, look what I did. And yeah, it was in some ways a good thing. But if I'd stuck it out and I'd been there, I would have probably, my life trajectory would have been very different. Often failure means sticking it out. You stick with the failure. What feels like a failure is not necessarily, it's getting you somewhere. So I'm married, and my husband got his job as a managing director of the London BIC, very, very privileged position. And he inherited it from a certain gentleman whose name I shall not mention, who had completely messed up the organization, completely messed it up. It was so bad. It was so bad that the company had to be shut down. And that was tasked. My husband had to sort of pick up the pieces and close the whole thing down. And this guy who had messed it all up was unavailable. He made life miserable for the board, miserable for my husband, miserable for me, miserable for the employees. It was such a dark organization, a dark period for my husband's career. But in the process of that, my husband had to meet with a certain gentleman who then later offered him a job. This one job offer has taken us to 8 countries around the world to live in, to work in. And if it hadn't been for the mistake of one man who had screwed up a company entirely, I would not be standing here talking to you today. You don't know where your mistakes will take you. Now, I live in Turkey at the moment. I'm speaking to you from there. And Turkey has this amazing philosopher, had a famous philosopher called Rumi. Have you all heard of him? So Rumi was a 13th century Sufi philosopher who, for me, said the most profound word any living man has uttered, I think, on the history of humanity. He said, all things come to show us where the path is not. And those are your mistakes. When you make mistakes, it's just nudging you in a different direction. It's sending you somewhere better always. This lover didn't work out, a better lover will come across. This job didn't work out, the boss is a creep, he's made your life miserable, he's fired you. It's sending you somewhere. All these mistakes, your mistakes, somebody else's mistakes, they are taking you somewhere. And have faith that these mistakes are taking you somewhere good. They always do. Life does not go down. Life only travels upward if you let it.
Wow, that's a wonderful statement, Sangeetha. Like, so motivational. Like, life just takes you somewhere. Great.
Always.
Yeah, so
Always.
Mr. Rajiv, sir, though, our Indian head of operations, he would like to share something. So, Rajiv, sir.
Hi, Rajiv.
Hi, Sangeetha. It was a very, very nice session. I think
I hope so.
I just want to share one thing. My youngest mentor, my first mentor, I would say. I've turned 60 4 days before, and he's
You
just
must
30.
give me the name of your plastic surgeon.
My name of?
Your plastic surgeon.
Oh, I see. You see, I got my heart operated in 2011 when I was 50. And my doctor said that now you're being an engineer. He said, now your heart is 25 and you have to take care of it. So I told him that, you see, you have overhauled my heart like we do the overhauling of an engine and we change all the pistons and all. So you have changed it. So don't you worry, I'll keep it intact for next 25 years. So that's what I'm doing. So anyway, I just want to tell you that my mentor Amol Karale, maybe you have heard his name. His book is The Power of Failure.
Wow.
I think it's the only of its kind book, and which inspires a lot. He failed in his life miserably. He failed in his jobs. He failed in his business. But ultimately, he's a successful man. He's a millionaire, I would say. He told me when I was 2 years back, he told me what is self-development called. So since then, I've been working on my personal development, my self-development. I have written a book. I'm now 50x coach. I have been failing in my job and my business for last almost 37 years. But I never took the failure as a blocking point in my life. If I fail at one work, so I aim for the next work much bigger than that. And that in that even I reached half the way. So I'm a successful man, I think. Then again, I fail in that work. Then I took more bigger work, more bigger challenge. So that is what I've been doing. And that is giving me strength that even after failing, I'm growing. Even after failing, I know I can bounce back, I can jump back. In the last 10 years, I have failed miserably in 2 of my hospitality sector businesses. But still, today, again, I'm a CEO of a company because people know that this man can do wonders when he has his day. So
You are
that is,
so
you have to look
inspirational.
for that day when you are wonderful, when you are going to succeed. And ultimately, failure will come, but you don't take that failure to your heart and
Correct.
jump over it and become successful. That is my way of thinking.
Well, I always think of, I've begun saying this to myself repeatedly, that my greatest achievements are my failures. These are my greatest achievements. These are my turning points in life. We
I'll
see
not
these,
say it's a
for
greatest
me, that
achievement
has
or
been,
failures.
it's
I can
been
say greatest learning points are my failures.
learning point. Absolutely. It's a brilliant teacher. Just yesterday, funnily enough, a young lady from Canada visited me. She lost her mother to suicide and her father to meningitis. She didn't know her father ever, and she never knew her mother. She lost her mother when she was just 2.5, and she visited me. Her mother committed suicide. Her mother was my best friend. I failed to be there for somebody who was so important to me. But on the back of that, today I have saved over 57 lives of people through suicide prevention, through healing, through counseling, through the psychotherapy I do. I have saved 57 lives. I have prevented 57 people from committing suicide. And if I hadn't failed my friend, I don't think I would have been able to do this. There is this great saying, again from Rumi, because I'm in Turkey, I'm going to quote Rumi a lot. Rumi said, "The wound is where the light enters you." I find that a very powerful thing. The wound is where the light enters you. When you are hurt, when you have failed, when you have been let down, when you have let yourself down, that hole that is created in your psyche, in your soul, in your mental, your whole sort of persona, there is a wound that is created. This is where the universe sends the light into. And this is where your learning happens. This is where you learn. Because people have hurt me, I have learned to forgive. I have learned to move on. Because people were stingy with me, I have learned to be generous. Because people have been unkind to me, I have learned to be kind. Because I have been treated badly and treated unfairly, I have learned to treat everybody equally, regardless of who they are or where they come from. I have learned from every horrible thing that has happened to me, I have learned to do the opposite. What would we be without our failures? We would be nothing. To be an eternal success, we would have to be God. And I don't want to be God. Do any of you want to be God? Sorry? I'm sorry, was somebody speaking? I missed that.
Ma'am, you can continue. It's just a technical issue.
Okay, fine. All right. Failure, the first thing we need to do from failure with each of us individually, and then we'll address it as a society, we need to take away the element of shame from failure. There is no shame in failure. In America, if you apply for VC funding, if you cannot show that you have failed 3 times, you won't get the funding. Because there is this philosophy that if you haven't failed, you haven't learned. And if you haven't learned, you're going to botch it up anyway. So don't botch up my money. Fail 3 times, then come to me for money. This is the standard. Failure is the best friend you will ever have. I can't repeat this often enough. You will fail at a marriage, and that's okay. You know, it's good to fail at marriages because then you can go and get married again if you want to, or you can go and have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Or not. I know these are not very kosher things to say out in public, but this is true. Yeah. If you don't fail at relationships, you don't know what's good for you. Knowing what's bad for you is is as important as knowing what is good for you. And if you don't go through the bad stuff, you don't learn what's bad for you. We are taught from the word go, you have to be first in class, you have to be first in this, and you have to be first in that. And oh my God, the pressure. Why aren't we told, but be the first in kindness, be the first in giving, be the first in generosity? Let someone else go first. I mean, how can everybody be first at everything? That's not humanly possible. So how about being gracious and taking a step back and saying, hey, I'm okay if somebody else wins. I'm okay if somebody else succeeds before me. We put all these time limits on our successes. By 30, I have to have 3 children. By 25, I have to have finished all these university degrees. And by, 40, I need to have bought my own house and own a BMW. These are seen as successes. Oh my God. When did we get so shallow as a human race? Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why not by 40, I want to be so evolved that I'm 80, I want to have 3 people around me that are truly happy, truly sad to see me pass away. Why are these not goals? And the problem is these failures that many of us take on board as being our failures are rooted in materialism. Doesn't work. We can't all be millionaires. We can't all be supermodels. We can't all be Shah Rukh Khan or Demi Moore or, Justin Trudeau. It's okay to be ordinary. It's not a failure to be ordinary. It is a joy to be ordinary, to be one among the many millions who makes this world go round with our daily aspirations and our labors and our trials and our attempts and our failures. It is not the Justin Trudeaus of the world. It is not the Modis of the world. It is not the, great footballers of the world or the actors who make the world go round. It's people like you and me. We make the world go round, and we do it mostly by failing, and it's okay to fail. The Wright brothers failed a million times before they built a plane. Walt Disney failed 33 times before he had a success. Gene Roddenberry, creator of the greatest science fiction franchise of all time, failed I don't know how many times before, I think it was Columbia, took on one of his scripts and says, yeah, we'll give it a shot. And Star Trek was born. Monet, that great French artist that we love, we have his posters everywhere, screensavers, and on tablets and on our dresses and on little IKEA posters. Do you know that Monet tried to kill himself twice? Mozart, that incredible musician from Austria, from the Prussian Empire, he died a pauper. Somebody tried to steal his work as he was dying. As he lay dying of consumption as a young 33-year-old man, his mentor, Salieri, the court composer, tried to get him to scribble down all his music so he could acknowledge it as his own after his death. Luckily, Mozart's wife came in, saw what was happening, grabbed the notes, and stormed out. Today, we don't know where Mozart is buried, but we listen to his music. Beethoven was blind, and look at the stuff he composed. History is littered with failures. It's littered with failures. It's littered with failures. So I'm going to encourage each and every one of you before we go. I don't know how much time we have left. You'll have to tell me. We have a Q&A, I think, at the end of this, and I'm happy to answer anything you want to ask me about any failure I've ever had about anything. Okay, my life is an open book. I'm going to ask you all to do one thing. Go out into the world and fail. Fail every day. And at the end of this failure, look at it and say, what did I learn? You can't do better unless you fail. You will stay stagnant if you don't fail. You will be nothing if you don't fail. Please don't be nothing. Please fail.
Thank you so much, Sangeetha, for sharing such an honest story. And you need a lot of courage to share such stories, and especially with the complexion part. As being in sports, my mom has been a dark person. My father is fair, and being in sports, I always used to have a dark complexion. I was darker than you because I was used to be in sun all the time, which I got my complexion in college, so people were surprised by it. But then I was known as Kallo, the Hindi word that they use, or a black beauty they used to sue.
I know. Somebody 6 months ago, somebody called me a Kali Kutti, so I was good. So I just replied and said, "Oh yeah, no, that happens all the time. It's fine." So
Thank you so much. So what we do, I'll call on Sir, Rajiv Sir for word of thanks, and from there we'll stop the live and we would take few questions. Okay, so that we'll do. So Rajiv Sir.
Sorry, just before I finish, somebody put a comment about pain. I'm sorry, I should have addressed that. Somebody just put from Sunil about pain.
That's what I'm saying. So once we stop the live, then we'll take the question answers again.
Okay, all right.
We'll not stop the session. We'll only stop the live one.
Okay.
So Rajiv sir is here. Okay, Nana. Okay, I'll just take that then. Okay, so here we go, and I would love to thank you from the bottom of my heart and the Brainciti team, and for sharing so much. And you have been a great inspiration for females, because sometimes we are in the world of we just go the way we are being brought up. Like you have to listen to people, you have to obey the people. The first priority should not be you; it should be your kids, your family, your people around you. Keep yourself last, and it needs a lot of courage. What you have done, you said you are rebellion, but that is the power of your success.
Or my failure.
No, see, once you're rebellious, that gives you power to bounce back, and that gives you energy to be focused what you want.
Absolutely.
That's why you're fighting, right? That's what you fought for, your identity, for your own individuality, for yourself. So I think that has given you a lot of power, and from the bottom of my heart and everybody here, I would love to thank you and appreciate